Miami International, one of the busiest airports in the world, has its share of strange stories to tell. Remember, you're dealing here with highly experienced pilots and the world's most advanced technical equipment.
The Triangle has a long history of what we like to call time warp incidents, unexplained occurrences in which time just doesn't want to behave itself.
According to author Charles Berlitz, the strange story of the National Airlines 727 passenger plane began as it neared the outer approach corridor to Miami International Airport.
The Miami Tower was called for a time check. The instrument panel clock was right on. They were 20 minutes out and right on schedule. Later, the co-pilot would remember seeing a strange green mist that enveloped the aircraft, but otherwise everything was completely normal.
Never seen anything like it.
But in the Miami Tower, the air traffic controller was jolted when the blip of the approaching Flight 727 suddenly vanished from the radar screen.
I've just lost Flight 727.
The controller immediately went into emergency priority status. Within minutes, the Coast Guard Search and Rescue Squadron was in action, and the Miami airport prepared for the worst.
Watch is broken.
When the flight attendant checked for any last-minute instructions, she couldn't believe she had completed her usual 10 to 12-minute cabin duties in less than 3 minutes. And the co-pilot was surprised to discover the greenish mist that enveloped the aircraft since the time check was gone, not only from about the aircraft, but from the sky itself. Precisely 10 minutes from the time Flight 727 had vanished from the radar screen, it just as suddenly and mysteriously reappeared. The complex equipment was in perfect working order. The ongoing computer and manual scans verified. Flight 727 landed without incident, with the crew understandably curious about the emergency equipment along the runway. And they were all incredulous when told that their arrival was 10 minutes late, despite the fact that the instrument panel clock synchronized exactly with the earlier tower time check. It was now, along with every one of the crew's watches, 10 minutes slow.
Some experts, noting that our planet operates on electromagnetism, have wondered if the Bermuda Triangle and certain other areas might create vortices where material objects can drop into or out of another space-time continuum.
Personally, I'm not at all fascinated with the concept of the Bermuda Triangle. Here in Miami, it's not even a part of the culture. We have far more important things to worry about, like hurricanes, things that, frankly, are not figments of anyone's imagination.
But can we believe that it is the unique weather pattern in the South Atlantic Ocean that is responsible for all the phenomena in the Bermuda Triangle?
The strange goings-on in the Devil's Triangle are not exclusive to the Devil's Triangle. There's also an area off of the east coast of Japan called the Devil's Sea. If you went in the center of the Devil's Triangle and you bored a hole through the center of the Earth, you would come out in the center of the Devil's Sea. And the Devil's Sea and the Devil's Triangle are the only two places on Earth where the compass points to the true north, not the magnetic north.
Einstein had a theory that the Bermuda Triangle was a corridor, an interdimensional doorway to another world.
Some experts believe a corridor between dimensions might very well explain the mysterious time warp phenomena that so many flyers have encountered. Which brings us to perhaps the most famous of the unsolved mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle.
It began routinely enough on December 5th, 1945. An advanced training flight was scheduled for takeoff at 1400 hours. 5 pilots and 10 crew members were scheduled to go up. Ironically, their course was to be a simple triangle with an expected flight time of 2 hours. The flight leader was Lieutenant Charles Taylor, an experienced combat pilot with over 2,500 hours of flying time. Flight 19 had completed the first leg of the flight plan and turned north. Suddenly, all of the aircraft began experiencing problems with their instruments.
This is Foxtrot 28, calling Foxtrot 36. My instruments have gone crazy.
My instruments are malfunctioning too. Where are we?
Some 40 miles away, Lieutenant Robert Cox, a training instructor, picked up their transmissions, but for some reason they couldn't hear him. Cox called the base station in Fort Lauderdale, which had lost contact with Flight 19, and immediately emergency procedures went into effect. Base operations continued to receive Lieutenant Cox's transmissions, which told them Flight 19 was lost and disoriented, but they could not get through to Taylor or any of his pilots. Ham radio operators up and down the coast were also tuned into the lost flight and monitored their frequency. Then, as night fell, one of them caught the last words to ever be heard from Flight 19.
Don't come after us! They look like...
Even as the last words were being transmitted, a huge search and rescue mission was launched. A big Martin Mariner with a crew of 13 suddenly disappeared from radar, and, like Flight 19, was never heard from again. The greatest search effort in the history of the Navy was now underway. Thousands of square miles of ocean were scoured, but it all came to nothing. In the end, Flight 19 and the Martin Mariner, 28 men in all, disappeared without a trace, as if they had passed through some window into another dimension.
Incredible as it seems, 5 skilled combat pilots on a 2-hour training mission somehow got lost and were never heard from again. For over 40 years, the story has ended there, locked deep in the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. Until now. On May 8, 1991, the research vessel Deep Sea was 10 miles off the coast of Fort Lauderdale. The instrumentation locked on a find, and the computer generated an outline of an airplane on the seabed 750 feet below. The rear gun turret marked the plane as a Navy Avenger. 200 yards away, the sonar began picking up a second plane, and a third. All Avengers. Over the next 24 hours, the crew spotted 5 in all, lying within a 1-mile radius. The national news media concluded that one of our greatest aviation mysteries was quite possibly solved. Newsweek and People magazine reported that the wreckage on the sea bottom might be the remains of long-lost Flight 19. But the location is less than 10 miles off Fort Lauderdale, whose city lights are quite visible from the deck of a modern cruise boat and far easier from the cockpits of 5 fighter aircraft. In fact, the Deep Sea's underwater camera identified the letters FT on the fuselage from one of the sunken planes, which is the designation for the Fort Lauderdale base. The planes have not been found, according to Richard Weiner and Charles Berlitz. They only found Avengers, which were dumped after the war. Even though 139 Avengers were lost or dumped off the Florida coast during and after the war years, the news report strongly suggested the mystery of Flight 19 had been solved. But was it? Whatever they are, the anomalies of the Bermuda Triangle apparently exist and are still swallowing up lives and property, which seems to demand some new thinking on the causes and nature of these strange events.
There are a lot of mysterious things that happen on this planet, things that don't necessarily fit into the little box we draw around the universe and label it Newtonian physics.
One of the favorite theories among scholars and intellectuals of the 17th and 18th centuries was the concept of dual civilizations, that one life form came out of the sea to become man, and another remained in the sea to become a separate race. These waters may be the gateway between our world above and theirs below.
There is a long, long history of strange phenomena in the Bermuda Triangle. Scores of paranormal incidents and unexplained disappearances in modern times alone. That these disappearances have happened and continue to happen are now beyond challenge. The question no longer is, did they happen, but why?